let's create that resource. Go find it first. Go out there and find somebody who's already doing that and leverage that and bring them in as part of the team. So that's my quick little synopsis there. Hand it back, Emma.
Thank you, Ryan. Heidi, tell us about Vital Reset.
I finally get to talk. I'm Heidi Venture. I'm the co-founder of Vital Reset.
Oh, Heidi, hold on. Your mic isn't on.
No, your mic's on.
I have to yell. No.
Oh,
Check. Check.
can we get a Heidi's mic?
Check. I can use your
You want to use that one?
This is better for me anyway. I like a mic. I'm Heidi Venture. I'm the co-founder, along with my romantic and business partner, John Nelson, of Vital Reset in Hood River, Oregon. We're a small 3 administration room center. I didn't really want to start a service center. I just wanted to be a facilitator. I was healed by the mushrooms in March of 2020 on a heroic dose 8-gram trip. And it was great. I laughed for 2 hours. I became a honeybee. And when I came out of it, I had a way to keep the depression from ever coming back. And I wanted to offer that to people, right? Yeah, I wanted other people to have that. And then Measure 109 shocked us all by passing. And I started really thinking about, should I be a facilitator? I started doing mushroom journeys about that. You know, should I be doing this? And then we found out that the County Planning Commission was going to be talking about rules. So John and I went to the meeting to meet the amazing people who were going to start a service center in Hood River so that we could support them, be part of building this thing. And when we got there, there's nobody else there. It was us. And they had no idea. They had no idea. I can't tell you how much they had no idea. And I said, hey, I can answer some of your questions. And they said, well, who are you? What do you know, what makes you an expert? And I said, well, I know it more than all of you. So we sat down and talked for a while, and it was good. We started a good relationship, which ended with them making regulations that completely made it impossible to have a service center in Hood River County. But in Hood River City, we had a chance. The city government was a lot more liberal, and they didn't make any rules. So John and I started going around town looking for a place. We learned that on Google Maps, you can do a little measurement thing that tells you 1,000 feet. So we found every commercial building, every commercial anything that was not 1,000 feet within 1,000 feet of a school. In Hood River, we have tiny towns, 7,000 people, 9 schools. So 5 public schools, 4 private schools. So there was a really small number of places we could go to. And as you have heard already, had to have no mortgage, had to have a friendly landlord, needed to have a bathroom, just so many things it had to have. And about every 3 days, we'd get in the car and we'd drive around, and we were looking for a sign. You know, we were looking for where is our space. We were talking to realtors. And one day we drove down Wasco Street and we saw the sign, for lease. It was our spot. It was our spot. We're still there. Yeah, it was like a miracle. So great. And a few months later, we signed a lease with that guy. He's a great landlord. He's got a cannabis business in there already. We got involved with rulemaking. We're not as serious as everybody else who's been on this stage. We have so enjoyed this whole process. John was a retired contractor. We had to rebuild the entire office space. We had to build a bathroom. We've had to deal with all these rules and regulations. And oh my gosh, it's so much. But both of us had had businesses before. We'd had sole proprietor businesses, so we knew what it was going to take. We were kind of ready for it. And it's been just so much joy. And now we get a lot of joy from our facilitators. We pick our facilitators based on that we connect with them and we like them and we think they're going to do okay. Right now, I don't think we can hope that every facilitator is going to do a great job. They haven't got much training, but everybody that we're working with right now, they do okay. And at the end of every single journey in our space, and I'm telling you, this is except for 2 people who were still just a little too scared by what had happened, but almost everybody, at the end, they are so grateful. They're so grateful that they got this opportunity to try the mushrooms, to try to heal their depression, OCD, trauma, whatever it is. They're grateful. And I'm really grateful that we got to be, against all odds, a part of this industry, and we get to rub shoulders with all of you and have made so many fantastic friends. Thank you so much.
Thank you all. So my first question, I want you to take a moment and think about an experience in terms of like building the operations. And Seth, for you, I want you to think about building like the screening and safety protocol for InterTrek, where there were hurdles. And the outcome of it was you felt so proud of what you're now doing. Tell us a story about that.
I can take a stab at that because for me, my plan A, my vision for entering the psilocybin program was to be a facilitator, but also to be a licensed service center in the clinic that I had already built and had been working in for a couple of years. And I read the documents, I read all the rules, I thought I was set up for success right out of the gates, and fought a 9-month losing battle to go through all of that and not get licensed. So I learned a lot of lessons along the way. It was very humbling. It was frustrating at times. But in the spirit of the psychedelics, stayed in the flow, took what was happening and available, partnered with Tom and Rachel at InterTrek, who I had an amazing experience with in facilitator training, and collaborated with them and are now building something that I couldn't be prouder of. It's been just a pleasure to build this program with them, and I think we've been able to do something better than what any of us initially thought we were going to do, and are incredibly proud of where we are at this moment.
Can I ask you a follow-up question to that, Seth?
Mm-hmm.
You said that you are able to do these things you didn't know that you were going to be able to do. Can you give us an example?
At InterTrek, I am able to now work with a bigger team and collaborate and tap into the kind of collective wisdom of people from all different backgrounds and experiences, as opposed to working in a more isolated clinic environment where I was. Having, for me, the ability to work in this big, beautiful center with group space and opportunities to practice in that model is a blessing.
Wonderful, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Rachel, you want to go next and just
Yeah,
jump
I
off
can
of that?
dovetail off of
Yeah.
Seth a little bit. I think the first thing is like what we've heard said over and over is this idea of wanting to be in a rural, nature-based setting. And Tom and I are just, after all the, yes, right, we all know, and it just wasn't there. And finding the fair-haired dumbbell building and, picking up that phone. And it was the first call, like when we kind of said, okay, what did we think about? We were talking about like grass growing up through concrete, right? Like consciousness and how accessibility and things. So kind of like grappling with that. And then the exciting thing was the first thing when he said, we love what you're doing. And I said, I have to tell you about some bank stuff. It's going to sound like very personal that I'm jumping in here, but so you don't waste your time. And he said, oh, it's great. We own our building. Tell me more. And I was like, what? So, I mean, that was amazing. And then just the space itself And the other thing I think is the group. I felt really like being out of the country for so much and so long of this, individualistic kind of piece that I don't want to sound like I'm knocking. I've been through a lot of it myself, but the space and the group and how much interest there is actually, and really wanting to get in there and do that in its place. And then finally celebrating, finding someone like Seth, who's a medical doctor. I think we've got to iterate on the rules, the requirements to get more professional intersection instead of cutting them out. I know we agree, and so it's just been awesome to work with Seth and find a way to do more robust screening, that people could still opt out. We're not forcing things, but like go deeper, safer, and for our facilitation team, that somebody's holding that, and so there's, a lot we're doing with safety. So yeah, there's a lot to celebrate, a lot more work to do. But.
Yeah, wonderful. Ryan, you looked like you wanted to talk next.
Yeah, so one thing I've been really excited about, I guess as we haven't had any adverse events, but we've been thinking about it a lot. How do we prepare for that? How do we create plans for what could be a very chaotic situation? And had meetings with our facilitators and licensee representatives, people working in the space, and talking about creating all these color-coded charts on what do we do in these different situations if somebody is posing harm to themselves or others or property. What happens if they leave the building, et cetera, et cetera. How do we prevent that? How do we mitigate it? How do we respond? And at the end of that chart is always call 911, which is like the worst thing we feel you could do. That the emergency dispatch is not really set up to handle these situations. But working with one of our facilitators who had a connection with a group that's working with the fire department, we are creating a situation where if we call 911, our address pops up and we get routed to a special dispatch team through the fire department that is specially trained to handle these situations.
Wow.
They're working with us, so they understand that when they get there, the facilitator is still part of that response. They're not just pushing the facilitator out of the way, and that the goal is not to subdue the person or get them off site. The goal is first to get them back into the service center and calm. And then worst case, this team is also equipped with benzos to administer. So that's been another one of those examples of we thought that 911 was going to be the worst case, but reaching out and working with the city has proven to make that actually the best case, or not the best case, but a case that works.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's fantastic. I hadn't heard that y'all were doing that. Congratulations. Yeah. That seems like a big win. Yeah, can we just, we can all learn from that. Heidi?
There's two things I'm really proud of. During the rulemaking, I was on one of the rules committees, and I could see that we needed a whole community to work together to change some of the rules. Some of them were really going to make this not work. And so I started gathering up a group with Casey Mitchell and we gathered up everybody we knew in this space and started having meetings. And we ended up starting an actual group of people. It's called the OPSCC. I think it stands for Oregon Psilocybin Services Community Collaborative. And they still continue to work really hard to make the rules work for this industry. And I'm really proud that Casey and I started that. And then the second thing was when we started understanding that the tax code, the 280E tax code, was going to be completely impossible to work with, I started another group of people who wanted to start service centers, and we got together and we made accountants talk to us for free. Yeah, we made them talk to us for free. And we had some big heavy hitters in the cannabis industry come and talk to us for free, and it really helped us each come up with what our strategy was going to be to get out of paying 27 cents of every dollar that came in the door to the government and have no way to have any deductions. And that group doesn't meet anymore, but I still love all of them.
Wonderful.
Yeah, I just really want to thank Heidi. When we were creating our service centers at the same time, trying to navigate a lot of this, you putting together these kind of community events and keeping what could all be competitors together and sharing. Really, we could not have done it without that support.
Yeah, it is vitally important to me that this stay collaborative and not competitive as long as possible, and I will work my butt off to make that happen.
So my next question for you all is about the intersection of the systems that we live in, thinking about the medical system, insurance system, capitalism, all these other systems. How are you navigating, bridging these systems with medicine stewardship?
And it's something you have to, I feel we have to remind ourselves, it's sexy to say like we're going to overthrow all that with this, that we're going to change the world, which it's part of the hope. But these systems are large and entrenched, and we're not going to win by resisting them. And there's a lot of changing that perspective to working with in a lot of ways is helpful. And a lot of that's for us even just viewing a psychedelic experience as an adjunct to an existing mental health path and educating the existing therapists and local community to not replace them, but how do we help them? And I feel even, I think we'll hear about this from MPA a little bit, like the banks are coming around on this faster than cannabis. Insurance is trying really hard, but it is making moves they want to support. So I haven't seen that much. It's slow, but it's kind of keeping that perspective that let's use these large institutions rather than fight them.
Thank you, Ryan.
Yeah, I agree. I think, Ryan, you're right. I think to come more into the center space, though, with the team and things, it's going to be working with, like right now, we know things that they might say are harmful by requirement are actually harmful to not like touch, right? Some of the things that are hot topic for us would be harmful for me not to engage you, right? In a different way than to like, no, I'm sorry, the law says I can only touch you in 5 places. That's not realistic. So I'm thinking more like internally, and how are we going to help educate folks on what's harmful or not, or what's consenting adults or not. I think there's so much there where a lot of us just want to kind of like, a lot of complaints about it. We're going to have to educate and inform and work together in so many fronts. And then like, finance and things like internally, we all talk about access, but a lot of the therapy rates are things that drive the cost up. And so it's like, how is finance actually in operations, not the meta system, got to change so that we can, make this work more. I think we're all figuring it out and we all care. We're just starting to, as we're all opening, and it is like friend camp, whoever said that. It's like, yay, we're all here. And like, what are you doing? What are we thinking? How are we going to form, and how do we keep working with each other to inform the lawyers and the accountants and inform how we do the work instead of them telling us how we're going to do it because of risk mitigation strategy and account, like needs to come more from, the humanistic, like the whole. So I'm excited for us to start to see some of those things shift. Yeah, inside out. Yeah.
Yeah.
I guess I could,
Seth?
yeah. I can speak to like the medical part and how we're trying to intersect with the traditional medical system right now. So this is tricky, right? Because the statute tells us this is not a medical treatment. It's not a medical intervention. It's been kind of largely presented outside of the medical model. Yet there are risks, and so trying to figure out how to safely and logistically and legally navigate this system to do best for our clients and to protect the service centers has been a challenge. I could, for context, let me just read one thing that I wrote down. For context about safety and talking about like medical and psychological safety, from the OHA informed consent form, this is what clients see and sign off on. It says if you're taking prescription medications, have a medical or mental health condition, you should consider consulting with a medical or clinical provider before participating. So when I saw that in the rules, to me that seemed like a big problem and a big gap in the system, right? Because right now we don't really have the infrastructure to support that, as far as there's not enough primary care providers or mental health providers who have psilocybin or psychedelic specific education to be able to do those assessments. And we don't have liability protection, malpractice insurance to be able to have a provider confidently say, yeah, you're cleared to go. You've got my blessing, you're cleared for services. The way the statute is written, the bulk of the responsibility for safety and screening goes to the facilitator. And we do get training in the programs to learn about the medical and psychological effects and risk factors and physiology and pharmacology. But most facilitators are not medical providers. And so there's some gaps in the system. And so I can just describe maybe at Intercheck what we're trying to do to intersect these systems and navigate this. So we have created our own client information forms that are kind of above and beyond what the requirements are. That's a fairly robust health inventory that takes into consideration medical, mental health conditions, medications, family history, substance use, previous psychedelic experience. So we're collecting a lot of information. And then we've created our own internal eligibility criteria. And while it's not formulaic and a computer couldn't necessarily match up all those things, like Intercheck has created this position as a health and safety director is what we're calling it, to be able to review all those forms, to be able to communicate directly with clients to clarify conditions, to be able to request additional health records, to be able to talk to providers or their own specialists, psychiatrists, or cardiologists. So just learn as much as we can about their own health. And then I can make a recommendation to the service center about what this person's risk is, what the risk is to the service center, and then kind of combine that with the facilitator assessment and interview, and then ultimately give more information to the service center director to be able to make a more informed and safe decision as to whether to offer services or not. So navigating that system, creating the position, working with lawyers and insurance companies and not having insurance companies to be able to do this job has been an interesting navigation to figure out how to intersect these systems.
And Seth, so you're doing the medical screening. How does that then influence liability?
Yeah, that's a great question. Well, so we have a team-based approach to that, right? So we're going to have our clients have clear language so that they understand what this role is, right? So we are staying within the statute spirit and not establishing a doctor-patient relationship. We're not recommending, advising, diagnosing conditions. We're doing a risk assessment, and when I say we, this role right now for me, I'm providing this information to the service center. The service center's then taking all of the collective information, making a decision. So liability, I'm protecting myself as a doctor with this clear language to the clients, to the service center as to what their role is, so that we're not practicing medicine in a setting where we're not supposed to be practicing medicine, not putting ourselves at the risk or the liability exposure of malpractice. Right? This model is more akin to an insurance company hiring a medical provider to do like an independent medical exam. So it's a different relationship, it's a different structure kind of on the back end that reduces liability for me in this role, and ultimately by providing more information, making a better actual safety and health decision, helping the service center protect themselves and reduce their exposure and liability.
Thank you for explaining that. That makes a lot more sense now.
And Emma, I want to add to, can I jump in real quick?
Go for it.
But I think two other pieces, like liability safety center, but for us as facilitators and really the clients, is how many we're seeing we can't serve right now. There's a lot of contraindications of really serious stuff that we need to be really mindful of. And so something that Seth and I and the team have been working on is like that harm reduction approach to prepare for readiness. So if somebody comes in with complex trauma or, addiction and things are active and things like this, is how can we actually do kind of like the preparing for and working with a long tail. So it might be 6 or 12 months of really working with a network or things we're offering internally. So it's like no, never, which is just as damaging, just how many people think this is like going to be the thing. And it is for many of us, has been. We want that, but I just love that we're also taking that approach with the screening Seth is doing and really looking at like a case file, like what do they need, what are the resources we have, and how do we really, arm up in that journey with them so that maybe next year, right? So it's not just like, bucketing out and hard nosed, but really barely,
And that's what's been great working with Bendable as they do screenings and review applications, is it's not a yes-no psilocybin, it's a, well, what other resources are available, what other modalities, can we refer you to a therapist who maybe is more aligned with your goals. So that's been nice of not having to say yes, no, psilocybin. There's a whole other suite of resources out there. And yes, it could be psilocybin in a year, but what other resources can you access in the meantime?
Heidi, do you have anything to add about that? No? Okay. We have a couple great questions from the audience that I want to lift up here. The first one is, and I'm gonna reword this a little bit. If you could wave a magic wand and have the price range that you actually wanted to charge for these services, what would it be?
Nothing. If you asked me if I get a magic wand, I mean, I get cost in business, but it'd be nothing. If I get to make a wish, it'd be these come from the ground and hear and show and sit, and that would be my answer.
I think I need to rephrase my question. Let's give the magic wand answer. So I think we're all going to say free.
Thank you.
No, I'm not going to say
You're not
free.
going to say free. Okay.
No,
Tell me more.
Is my thing working? Yeah, I think we need to charge what will offer the staff and facilitators a thriving wage.
Yeah, completely agree. And that's, our focus, the facilitator is the bulk of the cost. And a lot of that's due to what they're doing. That's our goal, is to support them.
Can you guys put some dollar, some numbers to that? What would that be? Just off the top of your head, Mr. Engineer.
This is not off the tops of our heads. We think about this all the time. We do. We think about this all the time. We're all taking big risks. I know you guys, I can't believe you built your thing for $25,000. We invested $120,000 in our center, and that's basically out of John's retirement account. We want to get that back. Right now, it's cost prohibitive for a lot of people, but the early adopters are really happy to come and pay whatever they have to get in and get the healing that they want. And I don't mind having the early adopters pay off our debt. And later, things will be different. We'll be able to charge less later, but right now, I think everybody should be charging more than they are. Let those early adopters help develop this industry for us. And then, of course, we do have the equity stuff going on. We had our first equity journey this week. We had a guy, he paid for the mushrooms. He didn't pay anything for his facilitator or for our service center. So it's like we can get some of those people taken care of, and we can take care of the people with money. It's the people in the middle that are really we're going to have to figure something out. But it'll change. It's all changing.
Yeah, it's evolution.
And we like to frame it up a lot that, it's 12 to 20 hours of one-on-one time with a licensed professional in a licensed facility with licensed product. And when you start to break it out in the per hour cost, especially with a lot of the participants who are coming, having spent decades in the mental health care system, when we say like, oh, this is going to cost you $120 an hour, they're like, great. That's not that absurd when you break it out that way. And that allows us to provide living wages for everyone who's working with us. So I don't think it would be great if it was free, if we could somehow make that work, if we could just get rid of capitalism, but
Or medical insurance could pay for it.
So my last question for you is about sourcing product. How do you decide who to work with? How does that work? Tell us a little bit about the relationship there and the decisions that you've made in that process.
We just love Tori.
Yeah.
Are we all using the same person?
Tori Farms.
Yeah,
Well, it's
Tori.
the closest one,
Yeah.
and we want her to succeed.
Yeah.
she has the most experience and the best product, and she's lovely. It's great. Everything aligns. And we have an opportunity now to actually support those types of folks in this industry, like actually the connection. Is
Yeah,
worth it.
and I don't mind the other people who are growing. They're nice. They're okay, but they're far away, and we have to pay them to bring the stuff to us.
And Tori's really invested in the community too. Like I noticed we've been trying to sort out inventory and all these kind of strange things we have to do with product, just checking things and early lessons we learned. And she's like right there and how can it show up and change this and label. And so, yeah, everyone is lovely, but yeah, Tori's been.
Yep. And we need somebody to bring us a booster dose liquid of some kind. Like we need more products that serve the needs that we have.
Did everyone hear that? Business plan? Yeah, great, cool. Thank you so much for sharing your experiences with us. This has been really valuable. I know I've learned a lot. You helped me thank them.
Thanks, Emily.